Hey everybody, welcome to the cast. 2 episodes in as many weeks. I do love to spoil you, don't I? Anyway, today's episode is going to be an interview with Victor, our art director. It's going to be an extended version of the one that you have found in the newsletter, featuring a decent bit of interesting tidbits beyond what we have put down on digital paper. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to have a nice sit down and tell the nice folk about yourself. So let's start with a background. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Ooh. All right. Hi, my name is Victor Rubinstein. I'm the art director on Ember Sword. We're a small team, so we wear a lot of hats. So one of them is directing the art and managing the art team. I also do some VFX, establish the look of the game, and also do some 3D modeling every now and then when I'm lucky and when I have the time, basically. As for my background, it's fairly standard in that I always loved video games as a kid. And of course, like in those days back when you were still being considered a weirdo if you played games all day. So yeah, it was quite a while ago. Sometimes around 96, I think, I received like a bootleg version of 3ds Max my cousin bought from the flea market.
Oh my god. Was that back in Romania still?
Yeah. Nice. I've lived here my whole life.
Oh, so. Sweet, you're still there. Awesome.
Yeah. So we bought CDs at like shady from shady people in the market next to cucumbers and stuff like that.
That checks out so hard.
Yeah. So and when I got it, I was immediately hooked. Like I could actually create 3D models, which back in 96, especially in Romania, was something so abstract. I think it took my parents a couple of years to even understand what the hell I was doing in my room all day, 3D modeling. All throughout high school and stuff, I continued to do that. I even managed to sell some 3D models on some sites, which was really cool. I mean, I actually made some money back in high school, which was nice.
Holy crap! That was back in the day before Epic sponsored Unreal artists and all that, right?
Yeah, that was like in 2001 or something.
Wow, you were hustling.
Yeah. I was like, I was making US dollars, right? I was like the envy of my friends.
Awesome.
Yeah. Then around 2002, I started getting into modding, and then 1 year later, I made some mods for Oblivion that had a decent amount of downloads and were quite well liked, which basically set me on a path of becoming a game dev. Like from there things kind of just one thing led to another. I joined the team, well, actually multiple teams that were trying to make their own games, which of course all of them failed.
Any highlights from that period?
Nothing that's well known, unfortunately. They didn't get too far, let's say.
Oh man.
But yeah, it was a nice experience, and like the biggest takeaway from that was meeting a lot of people that also had the same interests as I did, and which led to ultimately me working on Ember Sword, pretty much. But yeah, so when I finished high school, there wasn't anything close to a university for working on games in Romania. There still isn't. So I decided, hey, I just skip university altogether and just focus on making games, because who needs more school? I wasn't particularly fond of it. Of course, my mom didn't have any of that, however. So I spent 6 years going through our architecture university. And
Jesus.
Yeah, that was pretty hardcore. I mean, I barely had any time to do any 3D art outside of summer holidays, so I was very much behind with that. I couldn't keep up with all the other people and stuff. But then, as soon as I graduated, I immediately got back into 3D and started doing freelancing. And 8 years later, I wound up on Ember Sword. And I think the architecture school I did come out of it with a lot of knowledge, and I just built one house, my parents' one, and that was enough. I mean, I like it, but it's cool. But the best thing that came out of it is the fact that I met my now wife. So
Aw,
that's it was still worth it. Could have been shorter, but it was still worth it.
that's awesome. Hey, don't even fret. My education took 7 years, and it was supposed to take 4. So, provided
Well,
you're happy, it
yeah,
doesn't matter.
exactly. Yeah.
So, how did you come to work on Ember Sword then?
Well, through a friend that I worked with on like remotely for various clients, and then yeah, I wasn't in touch with him for a few years, and then we started talking again a couple of years ago, and yeah, he just asked whether I'd been interested to work on this game that he'd been working on, and it turns out to be Ember Sword. And it also turns out that they wanted to have something to show people in a couple of months, so we had to make a trailer. And it didn't they did have some concept art, but not concept art, like some mock-up screenshots. Originally, the game was supposed to be 2D. I'm not sure if that's well known or if that even matters, but yeah, it was 2D. So I had, I think, a couple of screenshots to go on. So it turned out to be a very intense couple of months, but also very productive and very creative, because we did flesh out the style of the game, and yeah, it's actually a style that looks remarkably similar to what we have today.
What drew you to Ember Sword?
What drew me to Ember Sword? Well, it was a fun project. I mean, at the time, a couple of years ago, I didn't work in games. I wanted to make games, but actually, what I worked on was more like serious games, like training simulations and stuff like that. Some VR projects as well, but like no games. So I was super excited for the fact that I could work on a game. That was nice. For the fact that it's an MMO, I mean, game developers have this running joke about they want to make an MMO. It's like the most difficult kind of game to make. So it's actually quite a nice challenge. And yeah, I'm not sure how to tell this, but I'm just going to say it. I never played an MMO in my life. I'm the kind of guy that. Yeah, I'm the kind of guy that gets sucked into games once I start playing them. And the stories I heard about WoW and stuff at the time when it was launched scared me a lot. I didn't want to lose myself for a couple of years, so I prefer to just do 3D art and game mods. And actually, yeah, I stayed away from MMOs to this day. But hey, not anymore. Yeah, I do enjoy action RPGs, however, and I'm very excited about the combat system that we are developing, which is I guess very much inspired by the action RPG genre, even though it's an MMO. But we will have like tons of enemies and tactical choices and skill shots and all of that good stuff. So I'm very excited about it. And I think another thing about it is that I like about it is the fact that it has this blockchain part to it. And that translates into the fact that each item can develop a unique history basically throughout its lifetime. And for example, two identical items can have a very different value based on their history. And this is a pretty new thing when it comes to digital items. So yeah, it's really cool. I can't wait to see how that actually works out.
Hell yeah, I mean, as much as I've learned about the game, that still sort of continues to astound me in a way, because I also come from the school of I want to sit my ass down and play a single player game for like 15 hours a day, and we're gonna get to that in the second part. And I'm very, very distrustful of monetization practices, and for the fact that Ember Sword is striving and emphasizing the fact that it doesn't want to screw its players over, that seems like a massive positive to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would be possible without this without adding the blockchain element to it, and that it's really cool that players can actually own their items, and you can like legally sell them, and they are like yours. And this way, the game itself takes a small percentage of that, and that keeps it going. And actually, without that, I'm not sure if we could avoid the dastardly monetization practices that that are all over the place these days.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a positive thing.
Absolutely. So I've talked to Lauren a couple of weeks back, mostly on the same topic, and I wanted to ask what your vision of Ember Sword was, because his vision is that very much of a person with like a very broad view of the game. You know, he's touched every aspect of his development, but as an artist, I'm curious to see, or to hear what it is.
Yeah, well, there's some interesting limitations on the art of Ember Sword, because we want to make it playable in a browser, and you can just send someone a link and they click the link, and in 2 or 3 seconds they're in the game alongside you. So there's some technical magic that we have to do to get that working, and that actually involves some limitations on the art style. But that being said, I think limitations can be very helpful and force you to be creative in ways that you wouldn't necessarily have to be if you didn't have those limitations. So yeah, I'm just curious how we will pull that off as far as art goes, and how we can make a game that people want to play and that looks good, even considering the fact that like the whole world outside of the characters and enemies is just using one 32 by 32 pixel texture. That's like
It is
4 kilobytes. Yeah.
Seriously, I haven't noticed this.
Yeah, it's not that apparent, but it's true. It's basically color palette, right? So we don't use a lot of texture detail outside of the characters and the enemies, and even those have really small textures.
I never noticed.
Like I said, the limitations are quite interesting for this project.
Dude, that's awesome. I mean, considering what the builds I've played, the ones I've been sent, you cannot tell that you're working with resources limited as you described. So kudos on getting really creative.
Yeah, so exactly. So then when you'll be able to launch it in the browser in a couple of seconds, then that'll be really exciting.
Yeah, I was wondering how, because me and Lauren have talked about the server infrastructure and how that facilitates a whole bunch of players loading very fast into the world, but I never thought about the technical aspect of the game and how that enables the players to load that fast. And
yeah, exactly, because you can't wait around to download like 4 gigabytes of textures.
Oh yeah. Tell that to Bungie. Christ almighty.
Yeah, exactly. Games these days are incredibly huge, and I think textures are a big part of that. 8K textures aren't free, they take up a lot of space.
We're getting into the fun shit now. So,
oh wow, okay, let's see.
The first part was your involvement in Ember Sword and your thoughts on the game in general, and now we get into the fun stuff, which is you as a person. So I have a bunch of freeballing questions that we can just shoot the shit on,
cool.
And as much detail as you want. So let's start with, what are your top 5 favorite games?
Yeah, this is never an easy question. I used to play a lot of games, and also I didn't own any consoles as a kid outside, I think, of a Sega Mega Drive that I had for a couple of months, borrowed from a friend. So I've been mainly a PC gamer. So my favorite games, I think, I won't list them in any particular order, but they are Planescape Torment and Baldur's Gate.
Those, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, those old school RPGs in the Infinity Engine. That was really cool. Then what else? StarCraft. I was really into StarCraft. Diablo 1. The Civ series, Civ games. And actually the old Might and Magic games. The first person RPG ones. I'm not sure if anyone played those. And of course, Heroes of Might and Magic 3, which everyone I knew at the time played all day. So yeah, that was, I think, I'm not sure if it's 5, but those are kind of the standout games that I've been playing. And as you probably notice, a lot of them are quite old, because I don't have a lot of time these days to play games. With the work, 2 kids, and some passion projects I might do outside of work. But yeah, as far as recent games, I really enjoyed Sekiro. I've played through that lately. That was a really good game.
That gets me very excited.
Card games.
I love From Software games, because they are unlike anything that that's out there at least now. I mean, they emulate the sort of Metroidvania genre of old, but in 3D, which is an incredibly complicated art to pull off.
Yeah, and especially these days, where I mean, I don't think it's as evident now as it was, but for a certain time period, like games were getting easier and easier and like more um, approachable by anyone. So it was yeah, basically just like a theme ride instead of posing actual challenge, right? So and I think the Dark Souls series and Demon Souls, I think that brought challenging games back in a way.
Especially they did it in such a masterful way as well, because it's this might be going on a bit of a tangent from my part, but what I've always appreciated about those games is that they are challenging but not hard, and I make a distinction between those two words, because hard to me seems like a word that's too simple to describe those games, because hard to me denotes a difficulty which you can like turn on and off, and it's almost arbitrary, where a decent example I would have is Assassin's Creed Odyssey's hard setting is complete horseshit. Because in Odyssey, there's no difference between normal and hard in terms of enemy difficulty, right? They always do the same
stats,
just health, right? Whereas
Yeah.
From Software games are challenging because they have a line of difficulty running throughout the whole of the experience set by the developer. And they essentially teach you the process of perseverance and learning through trial and error, especially Sekiro. And I really appreciate that. Sorry, it's sort of a...
Yeah, I mean, part of Sekiro is actually like the combat. As you play it more and more, it starts feeling like a rhythm game almost, because you have to have those perfect parries, and then all enemies have their own rhythm in attacking, and then you seeing what attack they'll play, and then you can like perfectly parry that. So it's really cool. I mean, it kind of gets you into that flow state when you're playing it. It's very masterfully done.
You hit such a zen moment, because I think Sekiro is the From Software formula distilled to its purest form, where for years they they had a parry mechanic in their games and nobody used it, and they're like, no, fuck you, you're going to learn how to parry. Here's parry the video game.
Will be all about parrying, parrying the video game, exactly. Yeah.
And some people like it, some people don't, but the fact that they can do so much with one single mechanic is flabbergasting.
Yeah, and they dress it up really nice, like the world and the lore and everything is really, really cool.
I hate that gorilla. I hate that gorilla so much.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people say that, but I actually found it to be relatively easy.
I had that with the second gorilla.
Yeah, the second gorilla as well.
That was my watershed moment. All From Software games have that. You mentioned Baldur's Gate and Planescape. Have you played any D&D?
Not any pen and paper D&D. No. I would have loved to, but I just didn't have any friends that did it. Now I know some D&D groups are around my city. I just don't have the time now, unfortunately.
That's very fair, yeah.
Those games take like tons of hours, and yeah, it's something I can't do anymore, but I would really have loved to do it as a kid. I would have been like totally on board with that.
I mean, it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. That's why I asked. And just for your sake as well as the listeners, D&D can be incredibly long if you're the dungeon master. If you find somebody who's a very good dungeon master, it can be sort of a 2 hours a week experience that's incredibly satisfying and hits all the high notes of a good D&D session. So whenever you can find time, it's going to be really great.
I always in my mind, like D&D sessions take like 8 hours.
Oh no, I mean, I've had one that ran for 6, but that was an outlier.
Okay, then I probably had the wrong idea about it, but it always struck me as like you sit down and then you don't get up for X amount of hours and you're just super engrossed in it. But yeah, it's cool. I might actually give it a shot if it's just 2 hours a week. Then that's very manageable.
So speaking of length of time gaming, do you remember your longest gaming session?
Oh wow, yeah, I really do. I think I played Diablo 1 at some point for like 48 hours straight.
48?
Yeah, I think I finished it around 3 or 4 times, and I dreamt I was still playing the game like for a week afterwards.
Oh my god!
All of my nights were just mouse clicks and just it was really crazy. Yeah, my parents went to visit my grandparents for a week, and then it was just me and my brother at home. So of course we like he went out with some friends and so like he was 8 years older than me. He still is. So yeah, he had more of an active social life. I was just really happy I could like sit around and just played 48 hours straight, binged Diablo 1. I really, really loved that game. It was so good.
Your answer mirrors Lauren's. I believe Lauren's was he played Diablo 2 also for 48 hours straight.
Oh wow, okay.
But he, I think, locked himself in his attic and just like didn't let any parents or supervisors in and just went insane. So yeah, it's nice to know that team experiences parallel each other.
Yeah. By the time Diablo 2 came out, I enjoyed that a lot as well. But somehow, I mean, it couldn't mirror the experience I had when I think it was 97 or 98 when I saw Diablo 1 at a friend's house. And like he played through it. I think he only had the demo, and he played through it until he reached the butcher. And man, when I saw that guy, I mean, it was a mind-blowing experience for me. I'm not, how old was I at that point? 13 or so. It was really, really crazy. And I had to play the game, and I went home and I bugged my parents for 2 or 3 months to get a new PC, so I could actually play it. And then I just binged Diablo 1. I really, really liked that game. Yeah.
So is your fondest gaming memory related to Diablo 1, or do you have something else?
Not necessarily. I also fondly remember playing Civilization 1. That was even earlier, I think. I remember that I didn't understand any of it, as I didn't speak English, and it's quite a dense game, especially for a 12 or 13-year-old. But somehow I still managed to conquer the world and build nukes and stuff. Awesome. So I and there's that thing where you associate sounds with experiences, and I used to play that with the TV on in the background, and I put it on some music channel. Whenever I hear C block so strung out, I instantly get flashbacks of playing Civilization 1.
What a weird mental connection to have.
Yeah, exactly. But it's I mean, it just developed on its own. So
that's super great. Yeah, my English learning experiences, because we're both from Eastern Europe, mine sort of almost mirror yours. Mine were Cartoon Network, Talking to
definitely.
Myself, and Lego Racers 2.
Oh well, I didn't have a lot of Legos. I had the Lego Technic set. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, I think my English teacher was also Cartoon Network for sure. And games, obviously.
Oh hell yeah, absolutely. So speaking of Eastern Europe, in popular culture, our place of birth and residence has always been associated with like insanity. It's almost like this mythical gateway into another dimension where strange shit happens, right?
It's It's partially true. I mean.
Yeah, I know. So with that in mind, what is the wackiest thing that's happened to you as a resident of Romania?
Many things were different here than in the West. Or hell, it's very, very different than even with present day Romania. So I remember there were like a lot of building sites around my apartment block as a kid. So this was way back. I think I was 8 or 10 years old. So me and the neighborhood kids, we were around 14 or so. I went scavenging for, I'm not sure if you know those thin plastic pipes that you used to shoot paper cone-shaped missiles from. Used to blow pipes.
You created blow pipes?
I'm not sure if what the name for them is in English, but they were like, everyone had those. And they were, I think, from the electrical installation in those
PVC pipes,
blocks.
I think.
Yeah, PVC pipes.
I have one in my room right now. I don't know where from.
and we used to fashion them like bazookas and like machine guns and stuff like that with a lighter. I know, like we heated them up, and then you could distort them into all sorts of shapes, and you could make handles and stuff. We went really nuts with that. And actually once we had like a lot of those pipes and made like dozens of paper projectiles, we then hunted each other through those buildings, played like an early version of paintball or whatever. And yeah, those buildings were, some of them were 8 stories high, and they were just concrete floors and columns, so they didn't have walls or handrails or anything like that. And we were chasing each other, running, jumping all over that. And our parents were just too busy to work to care much about what we were up to during the day. So yeah, we did a lot of shit back then.
Oh my god!
I can't imagine this happening in the present, even in Romania. And myself being a father, I'm not sure I'd be really happy knowing that my kids are doing that.
Oh yeah, keep them under lock and key, because like...
Yeah, I mean, it's not that bad, but yeah, definitely. I mean, kids are really resilient. We just, people these days don't let them experiment that too much, which is a shame.
I cannot believe somebody else has a we made weaponry out of just stuff experience. Because it also happened to me as well. Like, me and a friend have created an obstacle course on which you like murdered bottles using a very intricate series of wires. It was almost like an Indiana Jones temple challenge type of thing, where like you would step on a wire and a bottle would fall towards you, and we had a collection of machetes, as all 10-year-olds do.
Wow, yeah, that's legit. Sounds legit. Yeah, we were up, playing with all sorts of stuff, man. It was crazy.
Checks out, but yeah,
that's what having not having any alternatives for entertainment and just having parents that are busy. That's what actually it devolves into Lord of the Flies, basically.
Yep, that is very accurate. Oh my god. Well, that's pretty much all I had on the docket. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down, have a conversation, let the people get to know you, and who drives the art direction of the game.
Yeah,
a seasoned warrior of apartment building.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, from pipes to swords.
That's gonna be the tagline for the podcast: from pipes to swords. Awesome. Well, cool. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
Hey you made it to the end. Congratulations! That must mean you like us enough to want more, right? Well, good news! We're all over the internet. Go to embersword.com and subscribe to our newsletter for a chance to play the game early, as well as the latest interesting tidbits on the game and the team. Join our lovely Discord community over at discord.gg/embersword. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at PlayEmberSword for regular updates on what we're up to. And remember the basics. Drink water, be kind to each other, and spread the word about Ember Sword.